Recording in progress.
If I can just push the button. So we'll call the meeting to order and start with a roll call.
Committee Member Mallard,
Roll call for you, Sandy.
yes. Sorry. And Co-Chair Sylvine. Committee Member.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, sorry about that. Committee Member Rich.
Present.
Committee Member Carter. Here. Co-Chair Kenna.
Present.
Committee Member Hopkins. Oh, Goodman. Sorry about that.
Here.
And Committee Member Sitjink.
Here.
And we have 7 members present, and there is a quorum.
All right, thank you so much. So do we have any action items to review from last time, Joshua?
I do not have anything noteworthy as an action item.
Perfect, I didn't think we did. Any comments from the public regarding items not on the agenda? I don't see any members of the public here today. Pause for 1 minute. So moving on, we don't have any decision items today, so I'm assuming no one has a statement of conflict of interest. Seeing none. The planning department report was submitted to all committee members by John Jay electronically, but I am asking our planning representative today to read the parts that are pertinent to work of the Climate Action Committee, which is the grant section.
So I'm going to first talk about the active transportation plan. So the ATP is heading into the last phase of its progress, and the public draft will be coming out towards the end of this month and will be available for a 30-day comment period. Staff is attempting to schedule a joint meeting with the Planning Commission and City Council to review the final draft during this comment period. And then we will go back to City Council for final adoption in November. Please take note, some of these dates may change, but final adoption does need to be completed by February of 2025. And that is for the ATP. And then for the Caltrans Sustainable Transportation Grant, in July, we had our 2 stakeholder meetings, and the consultant is working on the existing conditions report along with the participation plan. And those are the 2 grants that we're currently working on.
Thank you so much. Council, do you have anything to report?
I do not have anything to report.
Can I ask a question? Yes. For planning? Yeah. Let me see. So the building projects that were in his list touch on issues of climate and resiliency, and I wonder whether the planning department in each of these projects has done like a water assessment. What is the cumulative water assessment vis-a-vis the wells of the city of all these projects together? There are quite a lot of them. Is there like contact with, I mean, these are just some examples of questions. Is there contact with Sonoma County Transit to include these projects in like future transit? So my general question is around all these building projects, and they touch on issues that this group is concerned with, and I would like to see a little bit more reporting on that. Planning department actually is actively working on making these projects climate in aligned with the climate goals of the city. And then with respect to the grants, so the transportation working group is not really involved in these discussions, and that is a bit a loss of expertise in my view. And so I would like to see in the future that there is more a communication with planning department and transportation group on these issues. And 2 minor things I had questions about is and the transportation group put together a survey, transportation needs survey, that was put on hold because of possible duplication by the consultant. And we haven't really heard back what that survey has gotten us and whether this group still needs to go ahead with filling in some gaps in that survey. And then the last point, I read in the press that there was a development on the Lucky parking lot of 10 new Tesla superchargers. And I wonder whether the planning department has been involved in permitting that. And again, is it possible to communicate with the climate action group committee, because it's part of our goals to put EV charging in the city, and if we have more advance notice, we kind of get a better whole grip on that goal. Yeah.
I'll do my best to answer the question. So for most of these development projects, I have pretty minor involvement. So, but I will share your comments with the associate planner, John Jay, and our interim planning director and kind of see where it goes from there. For the transportation survey, I can look into that and we'll kind of see where their survey is going. And then for the Tesla superchargers, I believe that's more of a building department question. I'll speak with John Jay about that, but I don't think the planning department had that much of a role, but I'll look into that. Thank you.
So I think Zano's question, kind of your last question about the active transportation plan, hones in on one of the big questions that we, I think, want to try to address today. And I understand that you are, of course, not well positioned to answer those questions. And so I think some of today will be framing questions that will move forward to not, and it's not really fair for us to ask John to answer them. It'll have to be the new community development director who would be answering some of those questions about positioning. But for instance, in John's report that says staff is attempting to schedule a joint meeting with Planning Commission and City Council to review the final draft during the comment period, that would be an opportunity to include city representatives from this. This committee is a committee that maybe could or should have been included in that effort. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, just hear your comment and hear your suggestion. And I'll make an effort to reach out about future opportunities to engage the Climate Action Committee. So thank you for that comment. Thank you, Kenna.
But you look fabulous. So, thank you, Diana. Yeah, I think it's not a criticism of processes. It's just a lack of clarity of how does the city see the role of this committee? Is it something that is going to be integrated into decision making, or should we have a clear understanding that there's no intention to do that, and therefore have clarity on how, what the potential is for our effectiveness moving forward. So sorry, I interrupted your council reports. Sandy, did you have something to report from council? Okay.
I think it's, you said that whether, where does this group stand in the eyes of the city? Well, the city is city staff, and it's also city council, and each council member has one vote. So there's 5 of us that are voting. So it's kind of complicated to think about how to frame that response in terms of, I think in 2019, it was different than in terms of the mixture of who's on council now. Then it's different than it was. Today is different than 5 years ago. So I would feel that, it's kind of up to this committee to define themselves and then assert themselves in terms of who are we and what do we want to do, and kind of define it. more than look to the city to define the group. Those are my thoughts.
This is when I need Jerry to come back. Sandy, I don't know if you overlapped with Jerry on the committee, but yeah, he had a very strong argument for having the committee's role, responsibilities more clearly defined by the city council, so that there was some standing, because at this point we're kind of in the nether. And so working as advocates for ourselves, there's nothing requiring the involvement of the committee on the active transportation plan, right? So there's no guidance being given to staff about including consultation with this body on any of their projects moving forward, which is why we're always kind of on the edges going like, wait, why didn't we hear about that? So it's just it's an interesting question, and I think one that we want to ask ourselves today with our work plan review. But I'd first like to move to regular agenda item A, working group reports for activities not on the agenda, if anyone wants to bring anything forward at this time.
So can I just make a couple of comments from a council report perspective? Just want to make sure that this Climate Action Committee is aware that at our last city council meeting, we approved the installation of a piece of artwork right next to Sebastopol Center for the Arts. So that piece of public art has been approved, and also discussed the enhanced infrastructure financing district. And anyone who wants to discuss that further with me is welcome to, but it was addressed and there is a staff report. And also make this group aware that at the next city council meeting, currently anticipated on the agenda, is a discussion regarding the allocation of sales tax revenue, which might be of interest to this group. That's on September 17, and also a discussion of council priorities. Thank you.
I'll probably bring this up later when it's better to discuss our roles and goals for interaction with the city. But it's my thought that collaboration can help in a lot of ways. And we would seek to add to framing decisions, but not get in the way of decision making insofar as being apprised of certain things, because as I work on some of these active transportation plans, as I independently seek chargers to come into town, it's always interesting that, you know, something would come up that I'm doing independently. And, you know, so I'm being redundant, and that doesn't really help, you know, me. But I would like to be productive and definitely add to the framing of whatever informs the planning department and the design review board and other, you know, master plans as far as environmental concerns. You know, so if we can add to that, then we don't interfere so much with processes. And I think being informed of getting the regular report that you might have mentioned last time, you said that maybe there are department head reports or something like that that are given. If we just are apprised of some of that, and maybe we make sure as a body, one of us keeps track of watching and what's going on, that might be sufficient.
I think let's table this and let's get through our working group reports for anything that's not on the agenda, and we will discuss more fully when we're talking about our work plan, which is the next agenda item. Go ahead, Joshua.
Yeah, just a reminder that the next compost event is this Saturday, 9 to 12, but effectively 8:30 to 12:30. We have an email list of people who have signed up at the event. That's about the mid 200s, something like that. I'm still getting just a dribble of volunteers from that list, though. So if anybody wants to pitch in or spread the word a little further, that would be awesome. What in general we're asking, I already emailed you back. No worries. what we're asking for in general is a 2-hour shift, either the first half or the second half, and either at the pile or at the line of cars. And I'm trying to get this event to the point by the end of the year or early next spring where I don't have to be the one solely making it happen. And I'm not sure how that is going to work out, but that is a general goal. So again, if y'all could spread the word or hand people off or send them to me as you can, that'd be great. Next one is October 12th. So about 4 weeks from this weekend. Thanks.
I can come too. All right. Any?
Can I?
Yes.
I had a question for this city council report. So it's a bit similar to the earlier issue that I brought up. So the city is represented by one of its council members on the Regional Climate Protection Authority and Sonoma County Transportation Authority Board of Directors. And so that's really where a lot of the county decisions are being made about what we do about climate change. And we lacking kind of a good communication between NISA, who represents us there, and this group. So, for example, the executive committee met yesterday, and they're putting together a calendar of things that they're going to address. And one of them is the implications of the recent greenhouse gas inventory report for actions of the Regional Climate Protection Authority. So that's something we would like to have input in and talk to our representative on that board of directors so that Sebastopol can be more effective in shaping policy on the county level. There's another little thing that happened yesterday. After the executive meeting, there's the full board meeting. And one of the things that was on the consent calendar is support for the walk to anywhere day. So there's a day, a week without driving day. That board, and Lisa, I assume she was there, approved that particular transportation initiative. And again, we don't know about this. So you have to kind of dig around what is happening in this area. Apparently somebody on the city council agreed with something that affects transportation issues, and we don't hear about it. So I really want to encourage the city council and the staff to become more aware of all the interaction that are happening. For example, there was a presentation yesterday of Sonoma Clean Power, who did a survey of transportation needs in the county, especially in relation to electrification. So here's this report. We never hear the report. So we need to have some way to kind of get informed about these kind of things.
So I think we're going to keep going with working group reports. If anybody from a working group would like to make a report on behalf of their working group. All right. I think, these all kind of tie back to the larger issues. And it's definitely been different having our council representatives not overlap with the SCTA, RCPA representatives. It's been a challenge because you guys don't know. I mean, you're what is being done by another council member. All right. So I'm going to move on from working group reports because I don't see anyone else. And I just want to apologize. I sat here because this is where there is a plug and it's not my best seat for like seeing when people want to speak. So please throw something at me. In the meantime, our mid-year work plan review, which has now gotten kind of late in the year, it was an important, it's important for us to do in general, but it was part of our plan that came out of our November meeting where we talked about our plan moving forward. And I spent quite a bit of time this last week going through our council reports and our plans and our hopes and our dreams and things that we wanted to do as a committee, and really want to acknowledge that we have gotten very kind of just under the weight of this prolonged discussion of the future of the committee, where very little business has been moving forward, and we haven't been focused on our goals because we didn't know what our future was. There's a fiscal crisis in the city. There is kind of massive turnover at staff level, all happening. So the relationships that we built, that we depended on, we were very much being shepherded along by the previous planning director, and the loss of that planning director, with the best efforts of staff, it can't be the same relationship, and we can't be moved forward if we don't have relationships with city staff, which was Jerry's point all along. So Jerry, you were right. But where do we go from here? So I thought a good place to start this conversation was to take you through my walk through memory lane just a tiny bit with me, so we can be thinking from the same level. So I'm going to share my screen to very quickly review through a PowerPoint that we did in November. So this was a report that I gave back to you guys reflecting what we had heard at the October meeting and from a survey that we did of members of the committee. So what was working well was respect and engagement. We felt like we were getting public input through surveys, et cetera. Meeting efficiency, compost days. Compost days have always been one of our big winners when we talk about what we like doing. There was some really great research has happened in our working groups. We felt well supported by staff in terms of, I think, attitude, our determination, our process learning, that we have really done quite a bit of learning about how the city works. And then I guess our next step is, okay, now that we know how it works, what do we do? So when we looked at what we could change, that was a much longer list than what were we doing well. So purpose and methods, more collaboration and leverage with other groups, having focus versus dispersal, having tangible goals, more proactivity, increased connectivity with city staff, which is coming up, involvement with city decisions. This has been an ongoing theme of frustration. Fundraising, funding, increased adaptation strategies. And then when it came to meeting format and content, more working group engagement, more efficiency, more visioning. Some people wanted more personal connections. And then this big issue of sustaining the energy of the members, trying to do more public engagement, get more volunteers. And then we were considering reverting to a citizen group. So I think we don't need to revisit that today because we've been discussing that ad nauseum for the past few months. I think we've decided to stay, or at least our wish is to stay a part of the city for now. But that was part of our conversation even way back then, and the pros of staying part of the committee. I'm just going to focus on those because that's what this decision to stay a part of the city. Why did we do that? For amplification, for access to policy, for credibility, having some standing, to access to staff, to take advantage of our process learning. So we looked at who we should be working with, named a number of organizations that we would like to be working more closely with or leveraging for joint goals. And then a lot of desire to do more volunteer engagement. And that's a piece that is still missing from this committee, is as time goes by and the initial excitement of becoming part of the city and then leadership changes in the city, providing less support to this committee, and seeing perhaps less value in it has taken some of the energy away, and there's like a cycle of we don't have the energy to have a volunteer coordinator, which means we don't have the energy coming in from volunteers. So this is a huge thing that if anyone has good creative ideas, but we've clearly said we should be doing more volunteer engagement, and also recognize that we have not had a lot of capacity for doing so. So other comments were kind of rethinking what's expected, what is the meeting cadence, how, and if you look at like the fourth point down here, reimagining how we interface with the city regarding climate related projects. The emerging themes of all that input was wanting to have increased effectiveness and at influencing policies and the actions of the city, wanting better connectivity with other groups, volunteers, the public, and each other, and wanting more clear sense of progress towards meaningful goals. So our path forward towards reaching those things was reinstatement of the steering committee, which the chairs and staff and our council members did start meeting again until this issue arose of the fiscal emergency and the potential dissolvement of the committee or our paths forward. So those were suspended at that point. Potentially redesigning our meeting cadence. I think that will naturally flow out of the likely outcome of reduced staff hours, is that having maybe a few less meetings a year will allow us to use our hours more efficiently. Prioritization of working group reports and the agenda. So you may have noticed that that is our first regular agenda item at every meeting now, unless we have an outside presenter. And then work plan revision. So that's where we are now, is looking at our work plan. We will go through it point by point, but I want to encourage us to use the city motto of, now I've forgotten, local flavor, global vision. So that we keep that larger perspective while we're looking at these concrete actions and seeing how they fit into the bigger goals of how the city how the committee would like to be interfacing with the city. And understanding that the work plan that we'll work on today is our current work plan, revising it, updating it, but understanding that the next step is adding new items, looking at the bigger picture, and being prepared for, as the new staff come in, particularly our planning director and public works, and we'll have a new council, is looking at what is it that we're trying to build with the city staff and with the city council, and having some clear idea of what is it we're asking for. So I think to Sandy's point of like, you guys need to advocate for what you want. Defining and articulating what we want is very important at this juncture while we're in this fiscal crisis, where there's not a lot of opportunity for us to say, okay, we're going to get this money for this project from the city. And I also want to acknowledge, as we look at our work plan and think about our visioning, that when this committee started, it was a really exciting time in terms of potential. During the first year, there was a lot of money, federal and state monies, moving towards climate projects. And it looked like maybe we had this big potential to become a model city of doing innovative, exciting, writing grants for innovative, exciting things that we would be a climate leader for other cities to follow. And I think we've really seen since that point, due to multiple factors, including the city's fiscal crisis, but not least of which is the federal and state priorities of sending those climate monies to more disadvantaged communities, and us being in our city boundaries do not include a lot of census tracts that would help us qualify for any of the grant monies coming down. So that, and what I think is appropriate focus of federal and state monies on disadvantaged communities means we are effectively locked out of a lot of that funding. And that's just not how we were thinking. We were thinking money is coming, let's catch some of it. And so we are a rich area with no money in the city government. It puts us in a particularly interesting conundrum of trying to be innovative, trying to think of how do we move these climate projects forward. And I'm not trying to be a doomsayer. I'm just trying to name the things that we've seen happening and the situation that we're truly in as we figure out, okay, our work plan includes these things. And so that's my.
I'd just like to start off with just the thoughts of how many things that we have done, because we've done a lot. First off, we started off with those 2 great meetings to try to get heat pumps more involved in, reducing our buildings envelope and efficiency. So there were 2 of those. And then we've been actively involved in all of the transportation grants. There are 3. There's the big county one. And so we've become more engaged with Bike Sebastopol. So we've increased our connections with the 2 or 3 groups that are environmental. As far as outreach, we have worked with Tour in ways to help get the high school more involved through a class program. So we've done outreach that way too. And then the measurement group has done quite a bit. We basically redid a baseline for the city. Steve Pierce and Jerry have done, in the measurement group, have done an amazing thing and completely built a dashboard that the county is able to see and use. We attended probably 3 or 4 meetings with the Sonoma County. What is it? I forgot the acronym. But, they saw our data for our specific city, because what we wanted to do was piece it out from the general zip code to find out what the electric vehicle load was taking, because our energy basically on balance went up, even though we have more solar, but we have more EVs. And what percent of EVs do we have in town, and how does that affect our total energy baseline? And all of these things we need to know, because baseline is what we use to get our net zero goal. How we can't know where to reduce and how to reduce unless we know specific things. And we were able to coordinate with a data provider to find out that there were almost 10,000 daily trips within the city of Sebastopol that were within walking distance that we can reduce, to take loads off the actual road. So there's something like 117,000 trips that went up from Kotati through the north part of Gravenstein, Healdsburg, and then 64,000 that went across from Santa Rosa, Stony Point to Bodega. So we know all of these significant flows that we have to deal with when we use these to inform the traffic studies with Fair and Pierce. And we are, and I apologize if I haven't apprised this committee well enough as far as those traffic studies go, but they're significant to the economic development of Sebastopol, slowing down traffic, but also maintaining the flow per Caltrans. And I'm sure I'm going to remember a few things in a second, but that's all I can say right now.
Thank you, Phil. That was a very important piece that I was leaving out, was what we have been accomplishing in addition to our compost giveaways.
Just so that it didn't sound so like, oh no.
Thank you.
We've done things.
Anyone else want to make a comment at this time?
I can.
Are you looking for ideas for work plan projects, or is that the different?
Well, I think we're going to go through the work plan as it stands, item by item, and then we can take ideas for new
Okay,
projects.
just let me know.
Yeah, just wanted to not just keep talking.
So Ken,
Can I
I
say
had,
something?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we need to include consideration the greenhouse gas emission inventory that came out. Where are we doing well? The data are a little bit insufficient. So, for example, transportation is transportation within the city boundary. It's not include and looking at what we produce in terms of transportation as citizens of Sebastopol, and looked at what happens within the city boundary. So that includes both people that pass through or visitors, and it also doesn't include what Sebastopol is though outside city boundary. It's model-based. It doesn't really include that we have more EVs.
So
than,
I'm sorry, Zana,
So I'm
are you
just saying that
proposing a
we need to-
new
we need
work
to-
item?
yeah, we need to add that to.
Okay,
the-
we're going to take new work items at the end. We're going to go through the current work plan.
Well, I in the presentation that you gave, I would,
Yeah.
if you do that in November, I would make explicit the greenhouse gas emission.
So I did have an observation, Kenna, as a general point, and let me know if this is the right time to make this comment, but I had a comment on the issue of the concern expressed regarding integration and communication to and from the Climate Action Committee. Is that a topic we'll be addressing in a little bit?
I think that would maybe be at the end of our
Okay,
work plan.
great, thank you. I'll wait.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks. All right. So I'm going to, again, share my screen, hopefully. And I tried to have something more fun where we could all be on a whiteboard together, but I couldn't figure it out in a way that seemed like it was going to work. At any rate, I don't think you guys can see that. Is that large enough to see? It's not. Shoot.
I will mention, Kenna, that this document is available on the
This document is
Climate Action
available.
Committee website for those who might want to click on it there.
Or feel free to log into the Zoom, but I think, is that getting more viewable? It's not. Okay, well, I will go through these. These are not in any particular order. They were intentionally not put in order to not create a sense of one was more important than the next. But our first item was from the Energy Working Group, and the City Department would be the Building Department and Council.
So this is page 3 of the document, right?
This is, where did my work?
I mean,
plan
I
go?
have it
Yeah.
printed out here. It seems to be page 3.
This is page 1.
That's not what I'm saying.
Oh,
I'm sorry, is this the 23?
this is the 23-24 Climate Action Committee approved work plan.
That's the document that I have open, at least, that's the
Oh,
link.
you're right. I'm sorry. I'm going back to page 1. I was on the wrong page. So page 1.
Okay.
Starting with the Energy Working Group and Building Planning Departments, promote residential electrification and energy efficiency programs such as those from Bayran, Sonoma Clean Power, and Sonoma County's Energy and Sustainability Division. Specific actions: conduct community electrification survey, which is complete. Develop a green buildings tour to showcase sustainable homes or other buildings, share lessons learned, and encourage electrification and adoption of other sustainable building features. So my understanding of that item is that it was looked into, it was proposed to the local architects association, and that no one took it up as a project. There was some interest, but no group was found that was willing to lead and take that project up. So should we strike this from the work plan, or shall we, is there someone that would like to try to move that forward?
Kenna, I'm sorry, I just had a question. You're talking about the green building
The
tours?
green buildings tour.
I mean, it would be Steve and Jerry were working on it.
Yeah.
I don't think that, I mean, we had to ask Steve, but I think
Yeah,
I was involved at one point. I don't think they're pushing it.
that's my
So the
understanding
energy
as well.
working group is not really meeting.
Will someone be admitting
They're
Emmett
well,
Hopkins?
I mean, I'm a
Steve
part
and
of it.
Lisa
I
are
never got an
working on it.
invitation to meet, so I assume it's not really meeting.
Okay, so that item is a strike.
I'm sorry, can I see
Yes.
that Emmett Hopkins is trying to sign on?
Oh, great.
Someone needs to admit him.
I can do that. Hi, Emmett. I can't see if he is,
He is there. I can see
I
him.
can't see raised hands, etc. So, oh, there you go. Hi, Emmett. We are working on reviewing our work plan. We're on page 1. Hopefully you can see my screen. So on promoting residential electrification and energy efficiency, our survey is complete. Our green buildings tour, we're striking from the work plan. And then the third item, improving updating resources available on the city website. Is that a project that anyone is currently involved in or that we want to pursue? My proposal would be that we advocate for our city website to send people to the Sonoma County Department of Sustainability, where they are maintaining a website and a staff who answer questions. That's the resource that we have been promoting in our public outreach events, correct? And that would reduce the need for city staff to maintain and update our city website. Does anyone object to updating the work plan with that idea?
And Kenny, you're just suggesting that staff add that link on the Climate Action Committee webpage?
Well, I think that we need to look at the larger sustainability page. We have a sustainability page. It has different resources. So I think there's a Bayren part on there. We might want to look at multiple places that, rather than one posted link, and making sure that whichever pathway you took through our city website, looking for that potential information, it would get you there.
So my input would be that it might be worthwhile to get an estimate from staff on the amount of time that it would take to do that update.
Yes.
Thanks.
Staff, do we have that?
Yes, if you would send me the link in particular that you would want featured on the website and those links, then that shouldn't take too much time.
I'm happy to do that if I can work with you, or I can just do it
Yeah,
direct. I can
let's
just
do
email
it.
it. Okay, I'll just connect with you on
Great. All right. So moving on to,
Kenna,
yes.
just a comment within that block before
Yeah.
we're moving on. So far as I can tell, the other specific actions that Phil mentioned with respect to developing these public forums about building conversion heat pumps sort of falls within this general category of promoting residential electrification, energy efficiency, et cetera. And so although we have, sort of finished or are removing these 3 bullet points in there, I'm wondering if other bullet points of that same category kind of are still active here, because I know those events went well, but there was aspirations for more or better or further in that respect. So essentially what I'm saying is although these bullet points may be done, the larger category, the BE 1.3 promote, et cetera, may not be finished with. It's not my working group that's focusing on that though, so I don't want to speak entirely for it. Just wanted to raise that comparison.
So perhaps an action item for me is to outreach to non-present members and see if there's any future activities to go under that.
Well, no, that's Phil and Alex who put the events on. I'm just noticing that it relates directly to this topic and wondering whether more events are desirable.
Well, I
within that
think,
theme.
you know what, I'm going to ask that we go through all, before we start adding things to any category, that we go through everything, because our next point is climate engagement series. So things may fit under multiple categories. So moving on to the next line item, design and implement a climate engagement series. So multiple points under that. Continue to promote electrification, water efficiency, solar, and other sustainability programs, such as those offered by Sonoma Clean Power, Sonoma County Energy and Sustainability Division, and Bayren. So we have had 2 events in 2024, correct? One
Correct.
in 2024. No, you had 2.
But it was, I would guess it was outreach. Yeah, 2-ish.
And they involved 3 or 4 different Sonoma County groups, including Bay Red, CARD.
So do we want to continue with doing outreach? And do we want to call it a climate engagement series? I mean, regarding those things, promoting electrification, water efficiency, solar, and other sustainability programs.
Yes, I think we'll make a habit of it. We should do this regularly, don't you think? Annually or something, maybe not a series.
I
I'm not
am in
sure.
favor of promoting the county series that come around and do education events and
Mhm.
promoting them within our channels
Right.
because they're doing the same things. And if we
Exactly.
can promote carbon conversations, it's a very strong overlap with what we're doing. I think the problem is Dina was here running, she was part of carbon conversations and education outreach. So that was helpful. But the problem is now is that I know the newsletter is restricted. I guess the only way we could really promote is by posting on the city's Facebook with Holly. I think that's the only way that we have really, unless we plan far in advance for the newsletter. Does that sound about right? So that can be helpful, but in terms of the outreach that we have in terms of like marketing we can do through the city and their channels, it's limited besides that. Are we doing the newsletter just by chance? And is there a date? Is there like any set up dates, or is it just kind of on hold, or do we know?
Currently, there are deadlines. I think they're about 2 months in advance. I could send that to you so you can know. And also, they have to be approved now by the city manager. So there's also that as well.
And is it accurate that nothing is to go in the newsletter that's not about cost saving measures? Or there's a fiscal involvement? No?
No,
No.
we did hear that, but I did get Joshua's compost event for October. So it looks like he is more flexible these days.
So Kenna, my comment on that would be bandwidth. So putting in a commitment, a goal of promoting anything begs the question, who is going to take on the responsibility for making sure that things are promoted, that events are promoted, that, who's going to draft the content, the image, who's going to coordinate with the planning department to make sure. So as I look at this particular group of people here, it strikes me that having a goal of promoting information in any way may not be realistic unless someone here can step up to take that on.
Yeah, sorry. I think promoting an event and doing that, it takes a lot less time than hosting an event. So that was my compromise, especially because we've learned about these events that are that essentially have the same goals that what we were going to be doing. So the fact that, there's just not as many, it's a lot of work to host an event. Promoting an event seems like a close second with, maybe a similar outcome. And also the fact that county's coming to Sebastopol to do the event, so I feel like whatever we can do to promote is, what we can do. And so I'm happy to take that. And this is kind of, our group's piece anyway. And I've been working with the teams to do this stuff. So it's not overly a time suck. Usually they have a flyer already. I can just send their flyer, so it's not too hard. But thank
Sounds
you.
like we have a volunteer.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. So, on the plan, this is within the education and outreach working groups bucket. So I think it's still living there. And for instance, we did have a day of tabling at the Gramercy Fair. So we are promoting, and we were giving out county resources. So, I'm putting maybe add Rahus to our list of collaborators in here. Any other collaborators that we are actively working with
Bikes Festival.
for outreach and education? Okay, perfect. Continuing on, in all climate communications, strive to promote positive narratives about climate change, human agency, and the interconnectivity of all living beings. Anybody have any thoughts about that item?
Sounds great.
Feel like yes.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think I think that's just like a
it's
general
just a
agreement.
guidance. Yeah.
It doesn't exactly seem like a work plan task for what it's worth. It's more like a general ethic or reminder. So I don't
Yeah.
know that. It
Although
needs
if you
to be
don't have it
clear.
in the work plan, nobody finds it.
Can I say-
Yes.
Yeah, I'm hard of hearing, so I'm not sure whether this is appropriate right now, but you were talking about the transportation survey?
We're not talking about the transportation survey in this section.
What item are you right now?
We're on design and implement a climate engagement series. So the second item on page 1.
On page 1?
Yeah.
Okay, on page 1.
For the next item, schedule, format, and locate community workshops and meetings to be convenient and accessible for community members, including by offering childcare and refreshments when appropriate. Given the refocus towards promoting other events, would we say advocate for community workshops to be convenient and accessible?
Sure.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I think there's some overlap with the other one in promoting, but I mean,
And I'm just looking for general guidance here for direction, and I will write up the revised plan and distribute to the group through planning department. Explore new and innovative outreach methods to better involve all community members in climate efforts. Are there new and innovative outreach methods? Does any feel, yeah, go ahead.
maybe that was intended to capture social media that never really got off the ground, so, or was restricted. That would be my,
So are we going to strike that one?
I'd feel pretty good about striking it.
Yeah, I'd either strike it or clarify what the heck
Yeah.
it means.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think because there are too many brown issues that we do strike it.
yeah, perfect. All right, thank you. We have finished page 1. Woo woo.
Woo.
Moving to page 2. In the upcoming countywide active transportation plan / Sebastopol bicycle and pedestrian master plan update, prioritize development of protected bike lanes, development of more shared use paths, and understanding of community needs and priorities. How are we feeling about that goal? Is this where you're?
Well, it's a good goal. I think people are working on it, but the group is indirectly involved. I think Phil is attending these meetings, but he is doing it more as a private citizen. So certainly, I think I'm kind of positive about this, that this is happening. I'm not sure how much the work group has been doing in that regard. We have a city council representative on some advisory committee. There were a lot of outreach in town around this, so I'm happy how it's going, but I'm not sure whether we did it.
So are you saying if CAC was putting more effort into this, it would be redundant to existing efforts?
Yeah, and I'm not sure about the particulars, so for example, the class 4 bike lanes, how that is doing in the plan. But certainly, this is on the radar of people that are involved in it. especially bike Sebastopol.
And Emma, I can't see raised hands, but I encourage you to unmute and speak up if there's things that you want to add or say.
I have a comment here, which is, I don't think it's within this Climate Action Committee's power or authority to prioritize these items in the countywide active transportation plan. However, this group could advocate for these priorities. So that becomes an aspirational goal that might be worth considering. And this kind of is a extension of what we just heard Sino say.
Does that seem appropriate to the transport? This is the transportation work group's bucket. So, so for those priorities, would we say advocate for these priorities?
Well, maybe we can change the heading a bit, because the countywide plan is not really our purview. So the Sebastopol update is kind of what we're talking about. It's only one of these two that is mentioned in the header here. So we could erase, I think, countywide active transportation plan, because these are really, although they work together, they're two separate projects.
Okay.
And no matter that helps, but
Yeah. Yeah. We just want to capture what we actually think we're doing. That's the point of this. So,
If I may just,
yes.
how we're participating is more or less representing our views to the projects, to making sure that Fair and Peers hears our voice. And I don't know if that's communicated in that paragraph, but that's how we're participating.
Well, I think advocate,
Advocating
Yeah,
sounds like a great
that captures
great
it.
word. Yeah.
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 And then
Well, it's a little bit more than advocating.
are we at this point in this evaluate whether the process can include, is that another advocacy area? Are we advocating for the process to include a citywide survey to assess residents' transportation needs and barriers to alternative transit and improve access to bike parking in downtown Sebastopol, commercial areas, and other destinations?
I mean, that's a little bit in past tense, but yes, they produced a survey for which we had input.
So the survey is completed.
well, I brought that up earlier. So we had our own survey that we started working on, and then the consultant came up with their survey, and we said, well, let's put our survey on hold and see how that's going. So there's still a need to go back to that survey of the consultant and see whether it fits all the needs that we originally had with our own survey. That's it.
And as Inzozi just said, I think at the end of the month, they might be producing that report, which will include the survey results, but I'm not sure if they will be isolated. Is that correct?
Well, the survey has been available for a while, I think. The survey result.
So would it be accurate to say we want that the work group wants to assess the need for further information gathering?
Yeah, so
Once
the
the
work
survey
group
is published?
could get access to that survey and then see whether we have further questions. So does the other survey also have Sonoma Clean Power about electrification needs in the county? And I'm currently talking to them to see whether we can break that down by zip code so that we have more targeted information. There's also the DMV data, for example. DMV data has data about adoption of electric vehicles in the zip code, depending on the zip code of the person who bought the vehicle. So there's some more data that could be kind of integrated in a better picture of transportation needs in the city.
Okay, I think at this point we're talking about the Sebastopol Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan update for this particular item. Is improving access to bike parking in downtown Sebastopol, is advocating for that still a part of this process?
Yes.
Ken, I just wanted to comment that I do not believe, although we're seeing the document on the screen here, I do not believe that it has been, that is being shared via Zoom. Is
Oh,
that correct? It is being? Oh,
I can see it. Yeah.
okay,
okay,
excellent.
good.
Thank you. I can't. Oh, well,
Oh,
it's fine.
weird.
That's fine. I can see it here. Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Also, it was called to my attention last time but so now Emmett spoke, so hooray. Last time, I guess there was no audio for our live Zoom audience. So when I was calling for public comment, they couldn't hear me. All right. So anything else that we need to include in this item about the Sebastopol Bicycle and Master Plan update advocacy? Okay, moving on to the next item, exploring ways to promote daytime charging for electric vehicles so that cars are charging when electricity is cleaner. Short term was supporting interested workplaces in Sebastopol and participating in Sonoma Clean Power's workplace charging research program. And long term, continuing research onto this topic and proposing options. Consider evaluating the possibility of an on-street EV charging pilot program.
Can you clarify what is meant by when electricity is cleaner?
So it's possible someone could explain this better than I can, but basically we have a lot of solar coming in during the day. And so we've got excess power during the day, and people, because of the way rates used to be structured, and sometimes for some, I'm very confused about how rates are structured for different people, but people mostly programmed their chargers to charge their cars at night when rates were lower. You might have a little more detail.
Yeah, California, but there was almost, I think, 120 days California powered over 6 hours of their entire day by solar. And that's really good. The entire state for like 6 hours for 100 something days straight. And so we want cars to charge actually during those times when solar is coming in, because we don't know what to do with that solar power. It gets refused and simply not used, dissipated as heat. And that's unfortunate when we can put it into our cars. And soon there are going to be laws that enable our cars to give back to the grid in the middle of the night, so that we will charge the cars during the day. They act as home batteries, and then they feed back to the grid during what's called duck hours. And those are the hours where we're coming home from work and we're using up all of this electricity suddenly, and our panels aren't receiving the sunlight they did. All right, so we're going to take the power, and that helps distributed generation. It reduces the load on the grid itself. We do know that home solar does reduce the intensity of the grid, and this year we've had fewer brownouts, even though we've had higher temperatures, because of the amount of solar that we've had on our roofs and because of the amount of batteries that have been installed onto the grid. So soon cars hopefully will have this adapter and be able to go into, if not go into our own homes, then go into the grid as a virtual power plant.
So follow-up question, isn't it more expensive with PG&E to use the daytime for charging rather than doing it at night?
I think rates are really, everybody's on a different rate plan.
So if you own an EV, you have this EV rate plan, right? And the charge is actually more expensive between 3 and 11 p.m. So during the daylight hours, if you're charging your car between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. or something like that, it's just as cheap as it is overnight.
Can I ask a question? Why is this characterized as cleaner?
Recording in progress.
The natural gas plant kicks in probably about 7 p.m. to make up for all of the lack of solar, wind, and water that we have. So we actually live in a county that's conveniently near these geysers. Those are clean energy, and they happen most of the time. So it all becomes part of the greater market. right? So we're buying as much as we can from the geysers, which is still clean, but we want to encourage clean energy. Solar, once it's installed, has no emission, but gas will have emissions every single time.
Got it. Thank you.
Do we have a proposal for changing the language to be more precise, or are we comfortable leaving language as it is?
I'll speak on my side of it. I know that when Carrie was still here, I believe we were trying to I think we needed about $10,000 to get a on-street charging pilot program going. Obviously that was, I think, at the beginning of our budget concern. So that was never saw the light of day. So in terms of the long-term piece, I mean, there's, unless there's a grant or a budget way that we can get into that, or a partnership with Sonoma Clean Power, that's pretty much dead.
So recently, at the Redwood Marketplace, there's new chargers there. I think that they're Tesla chargers.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean that if you don't have a Tesla, you can't use those?
But I think Tesla's integrating stuff, so I know that's coming. I don't know
Tesla
when.
said they were going to integrate, but they
Oh.
seem to be dragging their
They're
feet.
dragging their feet. Okay.
I know that there's an adapter you can purchase if you don't, because my Jeep is EV, and there's an adapter that you can put on your vehicle that will work in Tesla, but
you-
it's not.
Have you? Well,
I've never tried it.
With respect, folks, we're just going through the
Yeah,
work
yeah.
plan at
Yeah.
the moment.
Thank
I
you,
have to
Joshua.
leave soon. I want to get to some
Okay.
other topics.
So do we want to keep this item, or do we want to move? Do we want to strike it?
I personally want to strike it because there's nothing else to me that we can work on at this point, given the budget constraints and the blooming EV charging that we continue to have here. It doesn't seem like there's an insufficient amount. I don't see the chargers overly full, unless the power goes out.
Well, I think it was the daytime charging part, not
No.
not charging infrastructure. It was I think it's more of an education piece and these.
So I think it's important to make sure that the city has enough charge points that are also accessible to people that don't own a Tesla. So I think it's important for the work group and the committee to keep monitoring this and look for possibilities to have a diverse charging network.
I think at the end of the day, who's going to take point on doing it? That's because my piece of it that I was interested in pursuing is dissolved.
Yes, I think it sounds like the larger interest is maintaining and expanding Sebastopol's charging infrastructure, public charging infrastructure, as opposed to this very particular daytime charging promotion plan. So I'd say we strike that and perhaps replace with a proposal for supporting ongoing infrastructure. That sound right?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
That's good, and I guess for me it would be helpful generally if like each point had someone that was like the accountable person, or like.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
in column 3, it does have like which working group is the lead
Okay.
on that particular item. Clearly, we need to run some of this by members that aren't here in terms of what their wishes for, but we'll make our proposals and then we'll get feedback. So we'll put strike in for this for the time being.
Okay.
Next point, support community
Can I-
garden revitalization.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, one comment on that. I'm looking at the city website under electric vehicle charging stations. My suggestion is that paragraph be updated. It's not current, and I don't know who on the Climate Action Committee might be able to look at it. But update the electric vehicle charging stations paragraph, and maybe to the extent that Phil or someone else is motivated to do it, provide an additional piece of information about the benefits of charging vehicles during the daytime as opposed to at night.
That's a great idea. Okay, so I'll look at that piece and how to rephrase. Moving to support community garden revitalization incorporates the following actions: promoting regenerative landscaping practices, including mulching and composting through community education and implementation on city-owned properties.
You don't need to read the whole thing. It's
Okay.
done. We can strike that
We're
entire item from
strike the
the
whole
work
thing.
plan. We were engaged with the community garden for about a year, got it in a somewhat better position. John Jay ultimately at this point would be the judge of whether the garden needs more help periodically, but as I understand it, they're doing better than they were before we got started trying to bring more energy in there. So that's good. I'm going to need to take off in a few minutes, so I just wanted to comment in general on there's 3 more sequestration items that will be coming up. I can email specifics later on. The general story is, I think, all 3, which is compost events, stormwater planning, and urban tree study, still have merit. There's just a shortage of time and energy and person power to work on them. Also, in general, sequestration projects are inevitably involve the public works department at the city. And so I've had a good partnership with Dante over the years, and I understand that he's likely to be departing. And so I sort of have concerns about what the new status of public works will be and their degree of, energy for adapting practices or, considering additional practices. So that's my bigger term future.
So would and I apologize because I've been saying no new work plan items, but since Joshua's about to leave, would the new work plan item be engage with newly hired city, public works director around these sequestration practices?
If we're building an item for the work plan, yeah, it would be something like collaborate with Public Works to develop a feasible approach to addressing these issues, something along those lines.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, moving on to zero waste. So we have create a zero waste strategy that sets measurable goals for our organics diversion and waste reduction, outlines how the city will achieve these goals, and includes data gathering methods for tracking implementation. That was very bold. To incorporate increased efforts to educate residents and businesses about SB 1383 and proper waste sorting, and work with Recology and Zero Waste Sonoma to improve data collection on waste production in Sebastopol.
Kenna, I just had a general question about the documentation that you're going through here. You've been talking about, I'm hoping that there's a way to memorialize the many successful efforts that the many tasks that have been met in some way.
Yes.
I think okay.
The resulting will need this is completed items.
Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Zero waste. What do we think are completed items? What do we think are items that we have capacity to continue doing?
So I would say that SB 1383 is kind of an ongoing thing. We have most of the businesses here in Sebastopol compliant with SB 1383. So, but there's going to be other, legislation coming into the works. But pretty much the SB 1383 has been taken care of. And data collection, we provide that in the annual reports to the city.
I have a suggestion for this topic.
Yeah.
And one of the items that I'm wondering if anybody wants to work with me on this is to help the city departments to make sure they're composting and recycling and having separate trashes, making sure that they are complying with the law, and also in an effort to possibly reduce some of their can sizes or their bin sizes, because the residents pay for these services that come to the city. For example, the community center, the city hall, and And so and the pool, et cetera, they all have trash services that residents pay for. So if there's a way we can educate these different departments, I would be in favor of doing that.
I can do that. If you want to work
Great.
together on that.
Yeah. Great.
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 And have we set goals for diversion and waste reduction? Is that all included in these metrics that you submit with the reports? Perfect. All right. Moving on to the next item, pursue options to increase installation of electric appliances and fixtures, such as support workforce development programs, such as those from Sonoma Clean Power, to increase the number of workers who can implement electrification and efficiency upgrades. With Phil gone, do we need to just table this energy work group item about electric appliances, fixtures, and I'll reach out to energy for that update. The next item, expand climate and sustainability social media efforts. I think that was a
Can I
strike.
ask the question about the fee? Is there like, has there been any activity on the fee issue?
The fee, I'm not sure what you're saying about,
Consider
limiting
lowering
permit fees for
fee.
installing electric options. I believe there was some conversation about that. Permit fees cannot be, tell me if I'm wrong. The permit fees cannot be cannot be more than the cost of administering the permit process. And so to lower permit fees, the city would be subsidizing, and the city has no money right now. That's my short version of that answer. So I think the explorations that we've done of leveraging permitting incentives have not been fruitful, and probably would not be until we would need to find other rebates and consumer incentives besides the city as a source of funding.
So was this like a work group report on this issue? Or
I will check in with
you,
energy.
you
work group.
remember how you know this?
Oh, we talked about it for like for a long time. Yeah, at committee, at the meetings.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So looking to staff, is that accurate?
I'm sorry, I can't confirm for sure, but I believe our fees do have to be on average with other cities. I don't think we can be like at a reduced cost.
Yeah, there is some way that we could, as a
Subsidized.
city, subsidize for if we wanted to encourage things, but it's not in our budget.
Mm-mm.
So is there on the website like a list of fees that the city charges for various things?
Yes, if we go to the administration page, there is a link to budgets, and you can see all the different fees for different permits.
Okay, I believe we're striking social media as a plan.
Strike.
Okay. We're going to skip the stormwater management system. That's going to go into the new engaging new public works. So we're moving on to provide up-to-date information on climate progress on the city website, including data on the city's progress towards carbon neutrality for municipal operations and other metrics included in the framework documents. So overhaul of the website was something that had a lot of energy, but then there was a big website redesign happening. And a lot has happened on the website. Is the website now in a stage where coordinated input from the CAC would be welcome and possible, given our understanding that we are likely to have a staff hours budget?
Yes, it would be possible. It's the kind of creating that takes a lot of time, but if we had a collaboration going, then it would be feasible.
Okay. Yes.
So I have a email to you, Kenna, with all the website edits, and there's only 2 so far. I think the first one one of them was for the EV charging stations. The second one, or the first one was it for the sustainability page or for the climate action page? It was to add Bayren and
The county office.
the county office, but was it to the sustainability page or was it to the climate action page?
Well, I think the larger question here is that, for instance, Zeno was having trouble finding the framework on the website, that there's perhaps a need for more redundancy on the different pages because the different pages lead you to different results. And so if you're looking for something specific, it can be hard to navigate the site to get to what the information you need is. So we could potentially, I don't know if you'd be willing to just make a time we could sit and kind of look at.
Let's do it.
All right. So Alex,
I guess my point was that way we can have it maybe be at least one solid body of recommendation so that whenever you guys do an update next or whenever we can get that fit in, at least it's all together for what we recommend the updates are.
yes.
Cool.
Great. Okay. We have reached the end of our current work plan. So we still have some time to take suggestions for new items.
Could someone explain to me what the upcycled art project is?
Was that on there and I missed it?
I'll
Yeah.
explain it.
Go ahead.
It was Sunali's love child, and she worked with with different people to do. I feel like there might have been some chalk art too at some point, but I think the main thing was there was a few artists that she worked with where they were using like CDs and like really, it was actually really cool. It was actually displayed in the music, the
library.
the library and the music stores, glass windows too. But just really cool art that was trying to promote art using upcycled materials or recycled materials instead of new materials.
I propose that be deleted unless there's a plan to
No, it's
continue it.
I agree.
Yes, thank you.
You know, this event called Trashlantis is coming and it's going to be hosted. It's going to be right here in the youth annex outside. I think it's October 26th, but I'm not 100% sure. But they will be taking upcycled items and creating rideable objects and artwork and having a fashion show. And I mean, it sounds really fun. So
Well, let's invite Sunali.
I'm not sure where she is now.
Well, I'll text her. How about taking some really good pictures for social media?
Of that event?
I would love that. I think that would be great.
Yeah, I see it on October 26th.
Do we
Yeah,
do
it's
that, or
during
do
the
we just
day.
use our social medias for emergencies? Is that?
No, as long, I've seen all sorts of items in our newsletter, as long as it's something that's simple and uplifting can be okay. Also, I think that there's an effort that Councilmember Maurer and I are involved in that would request that the city sponsor the event, not a money-related, no money from the city, but sponsorship, and that would certainly be a path toward posting it in the city's newsletter.
Love it. Cool.
So are we not talking about the other two pages then
Did I lose 2 pages?
in the work plan? Well, it's what is called other priorities, and there's the appendix A.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
see
you're
other-
correct.
Yeah, other CAC
Thank
priorities.
you. I was like, how do we do that so fast? That's how we did it so
We
fast.
didn't.
Yes, so other CAC priorities, fund a full or part-time sustainability staff position to implement climate actions. Yeah, I was looking at our proposal for that. I think this is not viable for now. This was a council project and is not in the budget.
Yeah, I'd say that that's not something that is realistic.
I do think it's possible we have a responsibility to keep that torch lit in some way.
You could make it advocate for a full or part-time, or pursue funding options for something that would allow it to stay in place.
Okay, well, we'll see what we can do there. Next one, analyze each climate action through an equity lens to ensure that mitigation actions, number one, do not have a detrimental effects on Sebastopol's vulnerable populations. Number two, are targeted to serve vulnerable community members and therefore accessible to the larger community. And number three, distribute the benefits of climate action equitably. Is that an ongoing item that we would like to continue prioritizing? I vote yes. Yeah, great. Okay, ongoing working group staff projects. Continue conducting compost giveaways. So we've already covered that.
And you might want to add to look for a new director for that position, because Joshua is saying he wants to be done with that. So
Yes.
perhaps find a new coordinator.
Thank you.
I'm just
Yeah.
going to jump in. I don't know how long it's been up, but I see Nick's hand raised on Zoom. I don't know if Nick might have a comment about something.
Okay, we are not yet at public comment on this item.
Okay.
But thank you, because I do not see the raised hands. Okay, so for that item, we'll look for a new lead coordinator. Education and outreach, coordinate monthly publication of climate article in the Sebastopol Times and include link to article in city newsletter.
Strike. It's a great idea. It's just,
Yeah.
it's just the
Who's going to own it?
actual
It's a
work of to do
capacity
it.
issue, yeah. Okay, city website update. I think that Alex and I are going to meet about this. So we'll fold that into our meeting. Align permit approvals with framework goals. I think perhaps that goes under our discuss with, well, that's building department. That's not planning. Or who's in charge of permits?
It
It's
just
building.
depends. There are some permits that go through planning and some that go through building.
Is this something that we feel we have capacity for at this time?
Well, I brought that up already. An example would be the cumulative impact of all these developments that we're approving on the water situation. So is there in the city any like adding and assessing? And do we need to press more conservation measures in town so we can give water to these new apartments? So there's a permitting angle here to these projects that touches with the framework.
My comment would be that unless the Climate Action Committee has bandwidth, someone on the Climate Action Committee wants to do a deep dive and examine permitting and compare it to the framework, this is the sort of project that would be a huge staff project, and our staff really doesn't have the bandwidth.
Yeah, I think in addition, we have not identified any areas where our permitting process does not align with framework goals. So if you get down into our city code, there's quite a lot that is aligned. So I think that if someone wanted to take on a analysis of where there might be areas of misalignment, but I don't hear anybody raising their hand loudly. Okay. So is that a strike?
Yes.
Okay. Assess the possibility of installing additional solar and battery backup systems at city-owned sites, including at wells. Does that go into our public works conversation item, like to our engagement with public works new director item?
Sounds like a good plan to me, but I see Alex leaning in.
I just know Phil would just be tingling about this and
Yeah.
wanting to take responsibility. So, but I think that's good.
We can try to make sure that Phil's part of that conversation. That is C03.6. All right. Now, C3.5, host or co-sponsor climate-friendly community building events such as climate fairs, clothing swaps, plant and produce exchanges, community service days, etc. Aim to have one large climate event in 2023. I think we did. At the library with pizza.
2024.
That was 2024.
Yeah, that was earlier this year.
But I think that's complete, that item.
Sure.
And do we
Complete.
have aspirations to make that happen again?
No.
Okay.
You know, it seems to me that the Grange is hosting a lot of different events. So perhaps like you were supporting the county, linking to the county, could be, you know, support the Grange in these activities.
I think that's a great point, is that I was adding up here earlier to our outreach goals to add Rahu's, which does the carbon conversations, but that the Grange has independent events that are not run by Rahu's that would fit into that category. So I'll add them up there.
So a comment to staff, there are rules related to the extent to which the city can promote other businesses, nonprofits or for-profits. So
Right.
just need to be alert to that.
Okay. Is there a place where we could learn more?
This is a discussion item that Mary Gurley is pursuing right now. So I think once she resolves it, we have a new city attorney and they're going through assessing various city policies. And I know that's one that I'm aware of they're looking at right now.
Okay. So that will be great to hear on your ongoing council reports to
Okay.
us. And what
Sounds
you
good.
learned. Yeah.
Okay.
'Cause
I
we would
promise
like
to do
know.
that.
Yes,
I'd like
thank
to
you.
know too.
Thank you.
Moving back down to an urban forest plan. I think that goes to our public works conversation. Again, that is the type of thing that there's a lot of money for communities that have lower average incomes or other historical disadvantages than we have. Yes.
I just had a thought on the previous one, because if the Climate Action Committee partnered with the Grange on specific projects, not all projects, but if you see something coming up, you could co-partner with them and then it becomes a city project,
We will learn more, right?
Possibly, there's
Yeah.
a possibility.
Yeah,
That
I
would
like
be,
We've talked about doing that with the
Convers-
climate carbon conversation, so we'd be happy to do that.
So I'm going to move to review citywide parking policies.
but before you move on
Yeah.
from the urban forest,
Yes.
so I am noticing like the police department has a bunch of grass out front, the fire department has a bunch of grass, the community center, they have grass here, they also have grass there. Some of that grass doesn't need to be there. So I'm wondering about an idea for a potential project of putting in drought tolerant plants or maybe putting a few urban forest trees, or I don't know if that would work in front of the police department, but somehow redeveloping these grassy areas so there's just not grass growing there. I tried to get that in the budget this year and it failed. So
I was going to say, didn't council just discuss this?
it failed.
Exact
But
item.
I'm not done with it. So
Okay, so you're saying add to that list of public works conversation, drought tolerant landscaping.
it's not just public works. It would be the police department. It would be the budget committee. It would be, it would be the fire department or wherever a city department has grass. In
So
terms of,
those departments all maintain their grass separately.
yes.
I gotcha.
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe Public Works does maintain all that. It's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all within Public Works
Okay.
territory.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I look forward to you guys hiring a really great public works director. Because we've had a great one to work with so far. Okay. Are we ready to move on to citywide parking? Citywide parking policies, including exploring updates to on and off-street parking policies that could encourage active transportation, such as demand-based pricing and improved monitoring, build no new city-owned off-street parking, and consider transitioning existing lots to more beneficial uses such as multifamily housing or parks. Is anyone working on this from our group?
No, we have not been working on that.
Yeah, I don't think it's been active. No, anybody actively working on it. I think there have been conversations about it with the transportation working group and Gavin, who's on the bike ped committee. So I guess if we don't have immediate plans, it's probably fine to get rid of it, even though I think it's a worthy thing to keep on the radar.
Well, do we want to keep it alive in some way?
You could go for the advocate for language.
Yeah, I mean, the way it's stated is just reviewing the policies and exploring other options. So, I mean, it's not the hugest lift. So maybe that's still appropriate.
It could be combined with the parklet issue. Right, the parklet is an innovative way to make it attractive to take away parking space. And it could be integrated with some bike parking close to the parklet. So if the city would be able to identify locations in downtown where they want to encourage parklets, this could move forward, and I feel.
I mean, is this something that is being discussed as part of this sustainable Sebastopol kind of traffic calming contractor?
So the parklets were very controversial. There were a lot of challenges, specifically Highway 116 and Highway 12 are where most of our businesses are, and those are controlled by Caltrans, not by the city of Sebastopol. And it became clear that establishing parklets on those highways was going to be costly and very challenging from a procedural perspective. So my understanding on the parklets issue is it's pretty much been set aside. Councilmember Maurer might, and I see a lot of nodding heads over there, but I think this would be a very heavy lift if someone on the Climate Action Committee wanted to embrace it.
Well, I
then
think
yeah.
parklets are not in this current item.
Okay.
So I guess the immediate question is, do
Yes.
we want to leave this item alive? It sounds like Emmett is advocating for maybe leaving it in, given that it's a review kind of item, as opposed to a we're going to make it happen kind of item.
Yeah, I would support that.
Okay. So moving on to exploring micro-mobility options such as bike or e-bike share programs. Is anyone working on that?
Well, the city had a contract with Bird, I think, and that fell through. After Bird withdrew itself from like cities of the size of Sebastopol. So there was an effort to make this happen, but the kind of commercial business climate around this disappeared. And there are cities like Windsor that have an active bike share program or e-bike, e-scooter program. But it seems Sebastopol doesn't have the capacity in terms of infrastructure and size to sustain something like that. There is a e-bike rental at the bike shop, and people rent there to go to Forestville and the coast.
So should we?
But I feel that at this moment, this is not a thing that we can actually address.
So we'll strike this item.
Yeah.
Moving on to evaluate the possibility of establishing temporary and or permanent car-free street areas in community-determined locations.
Is this regarding, like, say you want to have an event on a Friday night and you want to block off the downtown, one block downtown? Is that what you're thinking here on this, or is that something different? Is that a permanent removal of cars on one street?
You know what? This was around what Petaluma did a few years ago, where they had a biking event. I forget what was something they do in Brazil on Sundays, where they what's the name of it?
Ciclovia.
Yeah, exactly.
What happens?
Yeah, and I know there was I was on a call probably a couple of years ago now with a few council members who aren't on the council anymore about with Eris Weaver from the county Sonoma County Bike Coalition and about really exploring the possibility of doing it in Sebastopol, and there was some serious interest, but I think that just maybe fizzled with the transition of those folks off the council. So if there would be people on the council or on the committee who would be interested in organizing that, then we could keep that on here. Another interpretation of this would be exploring bike friendly routes that could be sort of made into bike boulevards by slowing or discouraging cars without making them totally car free. But and all of these are things that I'm very interested in, but unfortunately just don't have the bandwidth right now to put time into it, which is kind of why I've been quiet for a lot of this discussion.
Isn't there a thing?
Yeah, the city, the Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition is organizing those, and they opted to work with Hillsburg this time. So there will be one in Hillsburg. The city doesn't really have the capacity to do that on its own. But there are things like Porch Fest on Friday or Saturday
Right.
that involve car-free street closure. And there's this other initiative that we heard last month, somebody brought it up of the public.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot the name. It's coming up in the end of September, I think. So there are things happening like this, and the city needs to kind of show that it's ready to host these events and that it has a staff person that can kind of answer questions about how to do it. And
Sandy, were you about to say something?
In San Francisco, isn't there a thing where the bikes everybody comes out and takes over the streets for an hour
Critical
or so,
mass.
or critical mass?
We were doing that. We did that here a couple times.
Have you done that here in Sebastopol?
I personally wasn't involved, but I know Woody organized it a couple times.
And do you-
allegedly, I don't know.
Is that something that has to be pre-planned in terms of the city or the police
Oh,
department?
I don't think
or
there's
you just-
anything
you just
notified. It's
do
just
it?
they just schedule it. Yeah, it is legal, I guess, if you have a certain amount of bikes, you can actually, and it's a 25-mile-an-hour line. I think you can actually take over the street legally.
Well, I like that.
As far as I know, I don't quote me, but that was what Woody was stating, so I trust it. But I guess ultimately, it doesn't sound like anybody's wants to take point on this right now, so we probably should strike it.
It sounds like nobody wants to take point. Then again, it is phrased in a rather passive way, as an ongoing rather than an active project. So is that something that I'm hearing Porch Fest, and I'm thinking my street gets blocked off on Halloween, and apparently it's kind of like a process every year to make it happen, even though it obviously needs to happen or small children will be mowed down, right?
Right.
So
I'm totally in support of this. So I'm not going to say I'm going to do projects on it, but I definitely have an open mind, and I'm support.
I think we can leave it there in its passive format. The next one, I think this is a question for Ambrosia. Increase education and enforcement of the city's disposable food serviceware ordinance.
I think this would be an ongoing thing as well, because I got an email today regarding the Barlow not having, they all had the proper compostable fiber bowls and stuff, and now we're not there anymore. So this is definitely going to be an ongoing, and there's other businesses that I visit too that I have to ongoing.
All right. Thank you for that ongoing work. And then replace city gas yard equipment and other tools with electric alternatives at end of life. and continue implementing and strengthening the city's environmentally preferable purchasing policy, including by incorporating a climate-friendly food policy for city events and evaluating the fossil fuel consumption of all city contractors. Whew. Yes.
I think part of this is already in place because the state has stopped the sale of gas equipment. So, I mean, if they need a certain bit gas equipment, like you can't buy a gas weed whacker really anymore. So, by the end of the year, that's going to be effective. I think, maybe just generally the policy would be nice to have some, but that's a public works piece or a city manager piece for purchasing.
I believe Public Works did in fact purchase electric weed whackers. I remember going out to Libby Park for a demonstration. So that may already have been done.
Look at us.
Dante Del Prete was quite excited about it, honestly.
Yeah. So, I mean, perhaps that's an item for the upcoming conversation engagement with the new public works director. This continue implementing and strengthening the city's environmentally preferable purchasing policy, including food policy and fossil fuel consumption of all city contractors. That's a big item. Do we want to leave that intact? Do we want to strike the whole thing? Do we want to keep parts of it and not all of it? What is our thought about that? Go ahead, Ambrosia.
The preferable purchasing policy around the food, I'm not sure that would be something to continue, but definitely, incorporating a climate-friendly food policy. I don't really know what that looks like. But continue with the city events and evaluating, well, I don't know about the fossil fuel part, but we need to continue to pay attention to the events that happen in Sebastopol and make sure that they are, following proper guidelines with disposables and such.
There's a lot happening in
It
this.
is.
I think you've got multiple ideas here happening.
Yeah, I'm feeling the urge to strike the last part of that sentence so that we can continue implementing and strengthening the city's environmentally preferable purchasing policy without trying to move into like a food policy and a fossil fuel consumption from contractors.
Yeah, the electric alternatives, it comes up here with the police department replacing its fleet. And so that is going to have to be decided soon. And are we going to buy another gas-powered car for the police? Or are we helping them to explore alternatives? Right?
So you're saying
Well, it's
add to replace city gas yard equipment and other tools, add and city fleet vehicles.
yeah, that would be something to. We need to be an example for the public to electrify. And the prices are going down, and it's mostly a question of getting the right information and having somebody who knows that world to advise.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great if we got bi-directional charging vehicles for all the police and we had like grid backup? You guys don't look excited. Okay, it's almost 5. I think really this time I'm at the end. Last time it was a false end. Add a climate impact section to every staff report. Develop a checklist or other tool to help staff evaluate potential climate impacts.
I think that's sort of steep. But what I think that would be important is for someone on the Climate Action Committee to review every agenda when it comes up and look for any potential opportunity for feedback.
When you say agenda, do you mean city council agendas?
City council agendas, yeah.
So like if we just saw something that was maybe had a climate lens to it, we could just email one of you, like
Yes.
who do we, is that the idea?
Yes, yes.
Just informally just say, hey, just want to make sure this has just want to make sure you're aware this has a climate impact, that's
Yes.
a couple sentences quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'd suggest that you CC staff, planning department staff. And that actually gives me an opportunity to make the broader comment, which is to the extent that this climate action committee wants to have a greater impact, I think it's going to require that the individuals on the climate action committee be proactive. So for instance, the planning commission, I'm here to tell you, I never know what's going on at the planning commission or the DRB.
Yeah.
The way I become aware of it, no one's notifying me, not staff, not anyone. The way that I become aware of those items is by reviewing their agendas. I click off on the box that I want to hear about Planning Commission and DRB, and I'm proactive about reviewing those items and then providing my input to the relevant parties if I have any input. So it's not going to be a staff to Climate Action Committee distribution of information. Climate Action Committee is in the same boat that council members are in. We have to be proactive about being aware of what's going on out there. And so that's a larger reinforcement of the comment that was just made.
So I just add to that I did sign up for the Planning Commission and the DRB agendas, and I do not receive them.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
Okay, that's something to
I
check.
want to confess that I often forget to click on the e-alerts, but I will try to keep updating them.
Oh,
every
yes,
time.
that's really important because it's not just council members, it's members of the public.
Well, I signed up probably a year or more ago and never received anything. So I've tried several times. So I don't know what's going on. But.
So there's one footnote about this, that we're talking about climate impact, but our mission is bigger. It also has to do with adaptation. And so some of these projects that are in the works will have a consequences for our ability to adapt to climate change. So for example, the heat island effect, like how we build the environment in order to, and with the consequence of trapping heat in the city. We need to evaluate projects on their effects on that kind of adaptation. Not just the impact on greenhouse gas emission, but also our ability to live in a warmer world.
So do you have a I entirely agree. Do you have a work item addition that you're proposing?
Well, it's the last sentence, evaluate potential climate impacts and impacts on our ability to adapt.
So do we maybe want to keep in an aspiration to developing some kind of tool to help staff evaluate potential climate impacts?
Right.
I actually think that we should continue. I know everyone rolled their eyes as if it was unrealistic to add a climate impact section to every staff report. But if it's just in your template, then you have to think about it, even if you write the word none for that section. So it's not, to me, a crazy idea.
It's not a crazy idea, but that's exactly the example. This group would have to develop that proposal, submit it to planning department, move it forward to the city council. It's exactly the kind of policy step that would be perfect for this group.
All right. So
I have a
And then
couple
there's this
additions.
is called the funding finance
that
working group, and that working group is not very
They're not-
active, so it
that's
would be
not-
great to
yeah,
see
let's-
whether we can revitalize that working group.
think about that. Okay, so I will go through and create an original version, like a redlined version, a cleaner redlined version, and then a clean version of the new proposals. I will check in with individuals from Energy to see if they have any other feedback that they would like incorporated in a draft, and get that to you guys before the next meeting for us to look at our new work plan. In the meantime, our time is short, and we have had someone requesting to public comment, but now are they gone?
Can I make a quick comment? I have a
Yes.
couple other ideas. One is I would like to see the city council have a land acknowledgement. I don't know if the climate group would want to help us create one, but that's one idea. And the other is I really love to see education or incentive for residents to walk and bike. I mean, we know that it's good for us, but is it possible that we could create some kind of a education or incentivize encouragement for people to walk and bike. I need that, I want more incentive. But anyway, that's it. I'll
Thank you. So other ideas for work plan items are welcome. I can stay for just a few minutes afterwards to receive those, or you should feel free to add those to this by just emailing them directly to me. Okay, so Nick he's no longer present in the meeting. Okay.
Oh, that's too bad.
Sorry, there's a message to me from him saying I wanted to add something. All right, thank you guys. That I know that's not the most fun, get up and put sticky notes on things process, but that was very helpful in terms of helping us move our work plan forward. I want to encourage the members of the committee to consider showing up for the next council meeting. I reviewed the agenda, but I believe that the staff recommendation for the budget hours will be on the next agenda. Okay, we haven't seen.
I
the
don't
agenda.
think
No.
so. I looked at the forward agenda, which is available to all of us, and I do not think it's on.
Okay, then I'm wrong. I also want to remind members of this committee that we are a Brown Act body. That was a decision we made by not disbanding ourselves. So please, please, please do not press reply all. City staff will try to BCC the group when something is sent to the group, but city staff are humans, and as are we all. So they will do their best, and we should also do our best to comply with the Brown Act by not emailing each other outside of the meeting in a way that could be either construed as a group discussion or a serial meeting where one person is checking in with multiple entities over a quorum on the same topic.
So how many people can I put in the address without violating the Brown Act?
5,
5 people.
correct?
So I can reply some, but
I would
not
say
all.
5, including you, for voting members.
4 members.
Voting members,
Uh-huh.
4 besides you.
And the work group members they're not relevant.
Correct.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Also, it is very helpful if you try to arrive on time. Our tech staff has really gotten dialed in. We are not having tech delays anymore. So I know we started coming late because our tech was taking a while, but if we can get our meeting started on time, that would be very helpful. And our tech staff has been great about having us ready to go. And that is it from me. I'm happy to take input from members regarding next meeting's agenda via email after the meeting so we can end on time. And my action items from today are simply for me to get this together and get it out to you guys. Any other comments from the committee before we adjourn?
I'll just confirm that in fact, the item you mentioned, Kenna, is not on the September 17 forward agenda.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for checking that. So we'll try to let people know through city staff if anything regarding this committee does get agendized before our next meeting, but hopefully it doesn't sound like it's likely to. Anything else before we adjourn? Thank you so much for your time today. We are adjourned until our meeting of October 8th.
Yeah, thank you.
Recording stopped.